Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Allie. I'm a member of the admissions committee here at CBS. I'm joined by two of our current students who are part of the Retail and Luxury Goods Club, and they are super excited to give you an overview of the club and to answer all the questions you might have. So just to give you a little bit of an overview, I'm going to kick it over to them for a welcome and introductions. They are going to do a club overview, and then we are going to go into Q&A. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Annie for introductions.
Thanks so much. Hi, I'm Annie Rosen. Little fun facts. I grew up in Charleston, South Carolina. I'm currently an EMBA student, which means I also have a job while I'm going to school. So I'm currently running partnerships at a retail data analytics company called Wiser. And then my kind of post-MBA goal is currently working on a market research company with another co-founder. And then fun fact, I have a 13-year-old rescue, George, who's afraid of everything in life. But in any event, excited to be here and talk with you guys more about this. Pass it over to Malika.
Hi, everyone. I'm the co-president with RLG, along with Simon Burke, who unfortunately is in class today, but she says hello. I grew up in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Prior to CBS, I worked at BCG as a management consultant. Hoping to be a project leader. So my fun fact is I'm half Sri Lankan.
Okay, so now we are going to go into an overview of the Retail and Luxury Goods.
I think we can go to the next slide.
Yeah, sorry, Malika, I think we lost you for a second. It might be a Wi-Fi issue, but it seems like you're back now. Okay, it seems like we lost Malika. Annie, would you mind going ahead and doing the club overview?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I was wondering,
Yeah.
I always just assume it's just, I was like, I'm sure everyone else can hear. Yeah, no, so I mean, essentially the Retail and Luxury Goods Club, I mean, it is what it says. I mean, it's basically putting together students that have an interest specifically in the retail or luxury goods club space. So that can be anything from fashion to technology to consulting firms that are sort of in that area. A lot of different, you know, kind of alumni that come from the space that are open to doing speakers and panels, and then a lot of networking kind of opportunities as well. We also have access to a job board, which has a variety of internships and then for full-time opportunities afterwards. And it really is kind of what you would imagine it would be. It's just an opportunity to connect with people that are specific to the retail and luxury industry. And then,
thank you. Sorry, did you want to go ahead and say something else?
no, I was saying, I think Malika's back.
Yes. It seems like you are
so
back.
Sorry,
Welcome
I don't know what's
back.
going on with my internet. I got something like flashed up. It's like, it's on.
No worries.
Hopefully we'll be around from here on out.
Perfect.
Well, Annie,
No worries.
Okay, so from here is where we're going to go into Q&A. So for everyone tuning in, you can go ahead and type your questions into the Q&A box, and then Annie and Malika are going to go ahead and answer them. And if the live questions are maybe a little bit slow to come in, Annie and Malika, I believe you have some of the pre-submitted questions that you might want to go ahead and answer.
Yeah, did you want to go? I think we had it listed out in that form. Unless, are they in the chat box? Is that where they would be coming up?
Here, I can pull them up and then just ask them to you verbally while we wait for some live Q&A questions to come in. Just give me 1 second while I pull those up.
No worries. The joys of Zoom. We're all,
exactly.
all used to it.
Okay, it looks like a good question from Stephanie just came in. If you want to go ahead and maybe work on answering that or some of the other questions that just came in while I pull up the previously submitted questions.
Oh, wow. Okay. Malika, are you back? I mean, obviously your answers are going to be better than mine. You're muted. Your mute's on.
I've switched internet networks. Hopefully that solves the problem. I am so sorry for the in and out.
No worries. Thank you.
I'm looking at the questions as they're coming in. The first I see from Emily: how does the club balance members' interest between retail, luxury, and fashion tech? I think what's really great about the club is just the sheer quantity of the events that we do. So there tends to be a couple events every month, and there really is a range in the different types of speakers we bring in. I think in the past we've leaned a little heavily on luxury and fashion, but have been making a really big push this year to cover more of tech and also more kind of entrepreneurship, smaller startups in the retail space. Should I just keep going through these? Is that the plan?
I think so.
Yeah, so you guys can just go through these and answer any questions that might be relevant to you or that you just have good insight into. And you can kind of switch on and off if that's helpful for you, whatever you guys feel like doing.
Sounds good. I guess the next one here, more about the partnership with the Luxury Education Foundation. So happy to take this one as well. I actually, separately from RLG, work very closely with the Luxury Education Foundation. I am the TA for the founder, Kedi Missarouge. So it's a nonprofit that she founded that basically works to connect luxury companies like Chanel, Hermes, Dior, with CBS as well as Parsons students. And the way that comes about is mainly through a masterclass that she normally has in the fall, in which you're doing projects for these luxury companies in teams of 4 CBS students and 4 Parsons students. But then there are also additional opportunities throughout the year. So they host small kind of breakfasts, which are now Zoom breakfasts. So for example, we have 2 coming up, one with somebody very senior at Tiffany & Co., one with somebody from Van Cleef. Last year, I had one where we did breakfast with the president of North America for Louis Vuitton, and it was really fun. We got a private tour of the store afterwards. And then the last thing that LEF does with us is also internships. So every year they'll work with some of the LEF companies to set up in-semester internships for students. So I actually did one this past spring. I worked at Cartier in retail operations. So in short, I am a big fan of the Luxury Education Foundation, and we really do a lot of cool stuff together.
There's a few questions about recruitment and job opportunities. So maybe it makes sense to go into like what type of internships can come out of this. I mean, I just see like just looking at overlap on a few questions. If you want to touch on that, there's like 3 or 4 that go into that specifically.
Okay, yeah, sure. I actually might keep going in order just so I don't lose where we are.
Okay.
But I promise I will get to a recruitment one next because it's the one after this. But I think this is a nice one. It's like, what got each of you excited about retail prior to joining the club at Columbia? Annie, do you want to take this one? So you have a whole career?
I do have a whole career. So MBAs, I don't know if you guys even know what that, I mean, it's basically you're going back to school as an adult. Not that we're not all adults, but going back in your mid-30s. So yeah, no, I've just been in technology since graduating from college, and the last few jobs worked at purchase panels like Numerator, and then I worked specifically for a fashion technology company, Style Sage, and now I'm at Wiser. We do also apparel, but into a bunch of other kind of areas as well. And honestly, I think it's the people and the cultural differences. Prior to that, I was selling into financial services technology, and not to say that M&A software and talking to people like that all day isn't equally riveting, but I just found this kind of space, you know, the CPG space generally and the fashion apparel space to be kind of better conversations, more interesting. And I think it's more aligned with personal interests. And I think if you can find a career where it has at least something to do or some semblance of interest in terms of what you're actually interested on your own, I feel like the conversations you have are a lot more fruitful. So honestly, by chance into this industry, but it's kind of purposeful at this point. And the company I'm working on after this is also in the same space. So yeah, I think it's a great industry overall.
Great. So next one from June: what kinds of recruitment opportunities in luxury and retail does Columbia offer and support, and how has that changed in the current environment? So there really are a number of different opportunities. I think some come kind of directly through our partnerships with LEF, for example, but also RLG has VPs of careers, and they actually put together a job board on retail specific jobs, which I think is really great. And so they'll pull opportunities from LinkedIn and other sources in order to make sure that we have access to all of the potential internships, in-semester internships, and full-time opportunities out there within the retail space. And then we also work really closely with the CMC, which is Columbia's Career Management Center, and they are incredible and also provide a huge amount of support in finding retail opportunities. And a number of those opportunities are posted sort of on the Columbia internal site as well. Oh, okay. I also have been informed that I was not clicking answer live, so you guys couldn't see what I was answering, so apologies for that, but I now know which buttons to click, and hopefully we'll be good going forward. And then I think just to touch on the changing in the current environment, I do think, colloquially from what I saw from friends and even in my own internship search, I do think there was a little bit of a slowdown in opportunities in the spring for the summer internships, but I think that's really started to pick up again. And I think there are a huge number of opportunities I've seen right now, both for full-time and in-semester internships. Okay. So the next one are pretty similar. So it's which speakers has the club brought in recently, and what are some of your favorite events and keynote speakers that the RLG Club previously hosted? So you're catching us right at the beginning of the semester. We're actually still having first years joining the club, so we haven't had a lot of speakers so far, but the next couple events we have, as I mentioned, we have the events with LEF that we're doing with somebody senior from Van Cleef & Arpels and somebody from Tiffany & Co. And then one of the panels we're doing that I'm excited for is actually an internship panel with second years. So talking specifically about how people got their internships at various retail companies, what those experiences were like. And I can talk a little bit about some previous events. I think RLG Conference is kind of this incredible event that people put a huge amount of effort into putting on every year. And at that we had very senior people from Cartier, from MAC, from Moroccan Oil, from Louis Vuitton, and it also has some smaller breakouts we did as well around entrepreneurship and health and wellness. And I think it's just a really amazing day just full of retail things where you can learn about what's happening in the industry and also meet other people who are really excited about retail. And I'm rambling a little bit here, but I think the short of it is there's just a lot of really cool events, and I really cannot speak highly enough about my experiences with RLG at CBS. It's probably been my favorite part of being here. Annie, I don't know if you want to jump in with any favorites.
No, I mean, what I'll say is, and a few people had sort of touched on it too, is that we've been able to, in some ways, I think your capacity to see more speakers. I mean, I realize Zoom is not the ideal format or to kind of live life that way, but it does make it easier to kind of pop into things. And so, I mean, this club, other clubs, I think having kind of access to just log onto a computer as opposed to physically going somewhere, I feel like, you know, the ability to kind of see more speakers in a condensed period of time is awesome. So clubs generally.
I think that ties in really well to a question here from Christian. How has the club adapted its programming in the current pandemic? To Annie's point, we have gone almost pretty much completely virtual. And while there is some of the richness of the in-person experience lost, I think it's really opened up the opportunity of bringing in other speakers. I think something that's unique that's actually happening this year is we connected with the Retail and Luxury Goods Club at London Business School, and we're actually going to be working with their presidents there to try and put on some more events that are Europe focused, and they have partnerships with business schools in France and Italy, so really excited to kind of take this as an opportunity to connect with speakers and even students that we might not be able to otherwise. Okay. One from Michelle on in-semester internship opportunities. Annie, this is directed at you. Do you want to speak to that a little bit? I'm actually kind of curious on the EMBA side, if that comes up as much or if you're more focused on the full-time.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that was directed specifically, or it might have been because I was the only person talking at that
That's
point.
fair. It said hi, Annie, so I was like, maybe you had said something specific.
But I'm like, we all have jobs, so we're not looking for internships while we're in the middle of this. But I assumed it was probably directed at you. I was just on here when they put in the questions.
Okay, I could take this one as well. So as I mentioned, I did an in-semester internship at Cartier this past spring that I got through LEF and RLG. I was in retail operations, which meant I was focused on the Fifth Avenue flagship store. So the way it worked is basically I arranged my classes. So I had all my class Mondays and Wednesdays, which now sounds even a little crazy to me when I say it. But then I would go into the store on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, and I was working with corporate on a number of strategic initiatives, mostly around customer journey in the service center as well as in the bridal salon. And I think that was a really sort of, in my mind, something that's really unique about Columbia is the fact that you can do an in-semester internship, and a huge number of my friends have done them. Somebody else in the RLG board, Anna, had one in the spring that I think it was at Frank Body that turned into a summer internship that is now turning into a fall internship. So she's getting probably, you know, like 9 months of experience working at this company while still going to school full time, which I think is really cool and somewhat unique. We have a question here from an anonymous attendee, mysterious. Besides certain event where LVMH is present, are any of the events focused around luxury food, dining, and wine? So in the past, we haven't had a particular emphasis on this, but I can kind of take this from a slightly different angle. I am also on the board of Wine Society, and we are doing a joint event with RLG and BBSA focused on Black winemakers and sommeliers. So I do think that there is some overlap there, and I think we're going to try and do more. I would say right now, most of the focus is on more traditional retail, but I think if that is something you're interested in, beyond RLG, there's Wine Society, and there's also Gourmet Club that has a larger emphasis on luxury food and dining. But love all of those things, big fan. Okay, just going through the list here. So we got a question from Renee around the events and sponsorships. So the RLG Club is providing exposure to AI, AR, VR, and how that is changing the beauty landscape. I don't think we've had any events that specifically speak to these topics. I do know at our, I believe at conference, the speaker from MAC did touch on this a little bit because they were one of the early people to do some of the AR try-ons, and they actually have a very, very cool store in China with a lot of these like AI, AR, VR concepts incorporated, but I actually love this idea, and maybe we will steal it for a future event because I do think it is super relevant, and there is a lot of interest in beauty, and we are planning on holding a beauty focus panel this fall as well. I don't know if you've tried these out, but I think it's MAC has the filters on Instagram, and they are super fun, and I would highly recommend it to anybody who wants to play around with some beauty AR. Okay, we have one from George here on experiential luxury, so restaurants, resorts, hotels, etc. I would say this hasn't historically been the emphasis of a lot of the events we do, but we have like little bits that touch on it. So for example, through LEF, one of the member companies is Baccarat Hotels. So I took a luxury block weekend class with Professor Maison Rouge. That was sort of one of these LEF programs. And as part of that, they had the COO of Baccarat come in and kind of speak to us about what his experience has been. He's been in the hotel industry for decades. And I actually think there's been an LEF project focused specifically on Baccarat hotels. Now that I'm saying this, we also have done a number of workshops with LEF. So one of the ones that I was a TA for, we also work with Remy Martin. So there is a little bit of that beverage piece as well there. Okay, Alana, are you still planning to have the RLG conference in January/February? Asking the big questions. We are still planning to have a conference. It is going to most likely be virtual given the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. I think we are planning for a little bit later in the year this year, but the plan is to try and still have a really great experience, even if it does need to be online. And I think kind of as Annie and I have mentioned earlier, trying to bring in like a really diverse panel of speakers and bringing people in from other countries who might otherwise not be able to come. So we're really excited for it. And I do not know what the theme is yet. I think it is a surprise still, but we are working on it. Okay. Arya asked, how is the club addressing the growing demand for sustainable and socially conscious retailers and products? Is this reflected in speaker series, internship opportunities, and company partnerships? Great question. This is an area I am particularly passionate about myself. This past semester, we did an event with the Green Business Club, focused on sustainability in retail, and we had people come in. We had the head of sustainability from H&M. We also had a couple of people who had their own brands that have a strong sustainability focus. It is definitely something that's sort of top of mind as we move forward. Actually, from an academics angle, we are trying to explore with the administration, maybe adding 2 new classes that are retail focused. So the ones we're suggesting is 1, something in retail analytics, and 2 would be around sustainability in retail because it is an area of such interest for so many students. Okay, next one is from Emily. What classes at CBS have you found most helpful in supporting your career interest in retail? Annie, do you want to start on this one?
Definitely. I think the first and foremost is business analytics, which you might not think about immediately when you're thinking about retail, but it's a class that, I mean, again, working at technology companies, you don't necessarily know, maybe everyone knows, I did not know how to do kind of basic running regression models and things like that. And my undergrad was in art history. I'm not one of these people. I've become more so through my time at Columbia, but I would say the data analytics, which is part of core for everybody, business analytics class. And it's great because from that, you're able to kind of decide, okay, how well can I do this and kind of in which direction to go after the fact. And I just think in working kind of in the field for 12 plus years now, that need is just going to become more and more important. And obviously it's something that you can only hide from for so long. I think I was one of those people that spent a little bit of time hiding, but it definitely demystified it. And then I would say similarly statistics in the same vein. So not retail specific, anything like that, but just kind of fundamental things that allow you to get your hands a little bit dirty and in any event, impress colleagues, if nothing else, back at work. But I do think a lot of that's kind of fundamentally going to be required in the future in this space.
I think I've taken some of the retail specific classes. I think my favorite class at CBS so far has been the Luxury Approach Block Week class. So that's the one kind of with Professor Maisarouge and LEF. And we basically did an entire consulting project for Laura Piana in 1 week. And it was really amazing. They had all of the executives come in 3 times that week. We did presentations to them. The CEO of North America was there. Like, these were very senior people. And it was very cool because it felt like we were taking like what we were learning and it was being applied in the real world. Some other classes I've taken, I took omnichannel retailing in the spring, which was really interesting. It's taught by somebody who's like one of the senior digital people at Theory now, but he had previously been at Intermex and Walmart, so really cool industry experience. I took supply chain management, which is, I think, kind of Annie's point, one of these, like, not all retail focused, but like a little bit of the nitty gritty in there. And I'm actually taking a class now called Creation of a Retail Enterprise with Mark Cohen. So he's the former CEO of Sears Canada. And the class is super interesting because it basically takes you through the entire process of setting up a retail store. So I'm working with a team of 2 other girls, and we basically have this retail concept, and it kind of takes you through the entire ideation. So it's like, what are our products? What is the assortment? What does the store look like? What neighborhood is it in? What kind of shelving do you have? And really getting into like some of the nitty gritty stuff that like I, even as a retail enthusiast, might not have thought about. It's like, what kind of point of sale system do you have? How are you staffing the store? So that one has been super interesting. Okay. We have one from Tammy for Annie. Did you face any challenges changing your career so drastically? Was it CBS that helped you make the pivot?
Yes and no. What I will say is I've learned a lot that I think will enable me to continue to get kind of at a greater, to the next level in my career. I think for me, being on the business development and sales side, I've always been able to talk really well about anything. Before we got on this, I said to Malika, I'm happy to run this, like having no idea what it's about. So I have that kind of personality. So I think
because you kind of had to.
yeah, exactly. It's like, sure, I can run this, no idea what we're doing, but yeah, no problem. But what I will say about CBS and kind of career, I am working on starting up a company, and just in my experience, again, being a little bit older than maybe some people on the line, it's something that I wish I had done a long time ago. And I think the network is incredible, and kind of the feedback and support you get from some of the alumni mentorship programs and things like that are really helpful. And then also it's just having that skill set that, I think ultimately people are going to want to see, especially in a co-founder of a tech company, to say, look, like I took an accounting class and I understand kind of the basic mechanics of operations and just sort of all those core classes that you have to kind of get through, but they're really important. So, I mean, for me, I think it's just added credibility, and we're looking at fundraising, and it just helps to have that. So business school, I wish I had gone kind of 10 years ago. So I think you guys are doing the right thing thinking about it now, but it's a really kind of warm place. And a lot of it, again, even with COVID, the access to, there's a number of different technology kind of tools where you can sign in and, connect with different people. And it's been really great. And obviously Columbia just has such an awesome alumni network. So yeah, it's kind of helping already, and I'm still a year out. So definitely worth it.
So next one here, I think we've touched a little bit on the specific electives, but one thing I wanted to address is, would like to know, does the club participants have to take any specific electives at CBS? There are definitely no requirements or anything to be a part of RLG. It's very much like you are vaguely interested in the space and maybe want to learn more, to you have spent your whole career in retail, this is your life, your passion. And I think that's something that's really great about the group. It's like everybody is welcome, and people bring such a huge range of backgrounds and experiences, and it really enriches a lot of the conversations that we have. Okay. There's probably a relevant one for an admissions webinar. Emily asked, did you consider the MBA programs you were applying to based on their luxury retail programs and student groups? What set Columbia above the other schools for you? And maybe Annie, both of us can answer this one. Very curious to hear your thought process as well.
Yeah, I can definitely kick that off. I mean, I think when you go back and forth around kind of which program to choose, and this was tough for me, there are maybe other MBA programs in New York City that have other retail programs and things like that. I mean, I think ultimately for me, it came down to the network. And again, in career kind of existence thus far, I've just found a lot of people in more senior positions that I've been speaking with. I mean, again, having worked with so many different brands and retailers, the name carries a lot of weight. And so ultimately, I think if you want to be in New York City, it just makes sense. And I would say that probably isn't retail specific, but it definitely doesn't hurt. I don't know if you have other thoughts, Malika.
Yeah. So I definitely have to say this was a huge part of my decision-making process, even when applying to business school. I really wanted to be able to focus on luxury and retail, and I really wanted to stay in New York. A big part of kind of in my mind, I'm like, look, this is kind of the fashion capital of the US, and this is something I want to learn more about and be involved in. I couldn't really imagine leaving New York. And for me, what really was unique about Columbia, I think beyond all of the opportunities with RLG and LEF and these amazing, like very retail specific classes, was the opportunity to do in-semester internships. So I had previously been in consulting straight out of undergrad, absolutely loved it, but I literally never had another full-time job. And a big part of the opportunity of Columbia for me was to come and be fully immersed in retail and luxury and actually get real industry experience. And I think that is something unique and particularly awesome about CBS. And I guess the one other piece there is just like the network of people who work in retail and luxury at Columbia is really incredible. I feel like kind of coming out of this, I was joking with a friend the other day, I'm like, I feel like if you name like a major like company or retailer, I probably have a classmate who worked there or interned there or has a friend who worked there. And it really is just this like incredible retail network because there are so many people who care about retail and luxury and love the space. Oh my goodness, so many questions. I see a couple about working at BCG doing consulting for fashion and beauty. I will kind of touch on that very quickly, but don't think that is the focus of today. But basically worked in consulting for the past 4 years. The first 2, I kind of bounced around a lot, tried a bunch of different things, but always knew I was really interested in fashion. The last couple years had the opportunity to really focus on fashion and beauty and did a number of projects that kind of spanned different areas of fashion. I worked with a sports retailer, I worked with a streetwear retailer, and then did everything from digital marketing to operations. I think it is a great way to learn about a lot of different things, but I think there are lots of awesome retail opportunities out there, so I don't want to dwell too long on that one. Here's a question. Is recruiting for retail tech done through RLG or Tech Club? Which retail tech firms recruit at CBS? So I think it's a little bit of a mix. Just for context, this past summer, I interned at Instagram for their shopping platform. I really wanted to do something at the intersection of retail and tech. That was kind of coming in for my summer internship. I was like, I want to do either digital marketing or e-commerce for a retailer or work on the tech side with a focus on fashion. I recruited for that specifically through RLG, but Instagram and Facebook also recruit through the Tech Club. You can also find all of these opportunities through Coin and the CMC. I think there's like no kind of right or wrong way to do it. For me, the way I did, I literally had a list of like 20 companies, and I kind of reached out however I could. If there were opportunities on Coin or through CMC, I applied to those. I looked on LinkedIn, I applied to those. I just sent emails to people being like, hi, you don't know me, but I think your company is really cool, and please let me know if you have any summer internships. And to be fair, I didn't get a lot of responses on those, but I got some. So I think it's kind of, you just do whatever you can. And there are so many resources at CBS, both within the clubs and the CMC, to find these opportunities. Annie, we have one for you here. It's from Cece. It says, hi, Annie. How do you manage the time and money while going to an MBA program in NYC with a kid? That's impressive. It is impressive.
I mean, I don't know. I think it's one of those things where you work in time blocks. I went very early in my career. It's very interesting if you Google time management and time blocks. No, so I mean, in all seriousness, it's great because I've always been a remote employee, so I'm able to kind of take work calls and do things in between getting homework done. So I think I'm uniquely kind of positioned to do this. I will say working and getting your MBA, it really just takes a hit on your social life. Fortunately, we had a pandemic, so there's less to do anyway. So all the weddings I was going to have to miss and baby showers and things have all been canceled or are virtual. So honestly, a pandemic is a great time to go back to school if you have a lot going on at home. But yeah, it is a lot. It's just kind of prioritizing it and then doing less of the things you want to do. But yeah, no, pandemic, great timing to go back to school.
I say, I feel like I'm in the minority, but I actually kind of like the Zoom classes. Like, it's sort of nice to be at home. Everything is like nice and peaceful. I have my snacks. I can focus.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Okay. I have one here that says, what was it like recruiting for an in-semester internship during your first semester? It was admittedly busy. I think everyone gets a little, well, we'll call it a lot of energy around the core and gets maybe a little bit nervous. And I definitely felt myself got caught up in that. And one thing that sort of helped for me was writing up my priorities coming into CBS. And I really was focused on this career aspect and getting as involved in retail and luxury goods as I could. So when I saw the opportunity for Cartier come through, I think it was like October, I was like, you know what, I need to find a way to make this work. And so I applied late fall, and basically the way I made it work is I started as soon as I got back to classes in January. And I really structured my week so that I had the time to do an in-semester internship. So by putting all my classes on Mondays and Wednesdays, I think in retrospect, one thing I probably would have done a little bit differently is just been a little bit better about setting boundaries with work. I definitely like am bad at saying no to things, and people be like, oh, can you like work an extra day this week? I'd be like, yeah, no problem. Like, I'll make that happen, sure. And it's tough when you really love the work you're doing. But I do think it is important to be like a little careful with the work-life balance. And definitely I'm gonna probably try and do another in-semester internship, and kind of excited to take that on again. Okay. We have a couple questions here about recruitment and job hunting. So I can speak a little bit to that, and then Annie, jump in. I feel like you kind of have your stuff settled, so you probably have not gone through all this craziness the same way. But it's really just all, I spoke to it a little earlier, the job search process is a little bit all over the place, I think particularly for retail and luxury, just because it is enterprise recruiting. So business school recruiting, we kind of think of it in two big chunks. There's on-campus recruiting, OCR, that mainly happens in the fall, and it's very structured through the CMC. And then there's something called enterprise recruiting, which happens usually a little bit later in the spring. And a lot of this is due to the fact that retail companies don't have a great idea of what their headcount needs are going to be until later in the year. So I think if you are targeting retail, you sometimes do need to be a little bit more flexible. There are some companies that do on-campus recruiting. So for example, like Amazon, L'Oreal, Estee Lauder, all of them are recruiting in the fall. And that's a very structured process with on-campus interviews. And some of the more informal things, I think it's kind of a little bit of a grab bag. Some of it is working with the CMC, some of it is through networking. So for example, I have a friend who at the conference met somebody from Cartier, started talking to her, and literally got a summer internship that way. I got my summer internship through actually an RLG alum who is now a team lead at Instagram, reached out to RLG and was like, we're looking to fill this internship. If you are interested and want a referral, just send me your resume. So I sent her my resume and she referred me. And I think there's just really such a wide range of ways people go about this, but RLG really does everything they can to try and support the members during this process. And I think just thinking of my friends who are kind of going for these internships, everybody found something they really liked. And I think there's just such a huge variety of stuff out there. It's a really exciting time to be in retail. Okay, I have a question here from Stephanie. This is a topic I have lots of strong feelings on. Do you have events that discuss gender equality in retail, specifically the imbalanced gender ratio common in retail C-suites? So first of all, this is a huge problem in retail. For those of you who don't know, there's actually worse gender equality in fashion and retail than there is in finance at the C-suite level. So it is still a very male-dominated field, even though there are so many incredible women who work in retail. We haven't had any events recently focused on the topic, but I think very broadly, diversity and equality are two things that are really, really important to us. My co-president Simran and I have spent a huge amount of time on conversations focused on these topics. And I actually, just before getting on this call, we sent an email out to the board. We're doing our AVP interviews, so that's bringing on some of the first-year positions, and we wanted to emphasize how important to us to really build out a diverse board and make sure that we have a diverse range of viewpoints in terms of racial diversity, gender diversity, sexual orientation. So I think it's something we are actively thinking about, and even though we haven't had specific events, I think it's kind of something we care about as a club and want to make sure is kind of carried out in all aspects of our programming. And I do have to say I'm a little biased, but I think we have a lot of wonderful ladies who are helping run RLG, such as Annie. So we're working on it, trying our best to change things.
And there also there's women in business club, like there are other clubs that are like specifically focused in this. This is something that, you know, there's kind of constant flow of opportunity to go to. I would say that this topic more than many others that are kind of constantly being addressed by different clubs, which is great to see. It's definitely different than when I went to college back in 2000, whatever, earlier.
But one that also saying like we love our guys too. Like I think really trying to make RLG feel like an open and welcoming space, and kind of there's no requirements to join. There's no requirements once you've joined. We are just kind of happy to have you there.
Hey guys, so it looks like the questions are starting to slow a bit. I know we have just about 3 or 4 minutes left, so I want to be mindful of your time. Maybe a fun last question we could leave off on is if you both want to answer maybe your best piece of advice you have for people who are applying for their MBA and who are interested in RLG.
I'll go first since Malika's will be more eloquent and we'd rather end on a higher note. What I'll say about the whole, you know, applying for MBA schools in general is really kind of figuring out what matters to you and being authentic, I think is the most important thing in the entire process. I think when you go into it, there's sort of this, all right, you want to have canned responses or answers or things that you think that they're looking for. And one of the advantages to going back to school later is at this point, I am who I am. I know kind of what I'm doing, you know, in terms of career path or what I'm looking for. And so for me, it was great to be able to kind of come in and have really direct conversations. But I think that's something that, you know, a lot of people struggle with. And I think the admissions team can kind of see through it a little bit. So I would say kind of being honest with what you want to do, that's going to come across better than saying, you know, I mean, if you do speak 16 languages and you've done a million things, that's probably great too, but maybe finding a couple of things that you're actually passionate about and being able to speak to that. But CBS has been great for me. So I love kind of the faculty and the people I've met. And to Malika's point, there's always somebody in some company or some other place if you're trying to kind of leverage the connections there too. So it's been really worth it so far for me.
I think completely echo Annie's point around authenticity, and that's really for any application you're doing. I think for me, I kind of felt like at work I was just like constantly running forward, if that makes sense. And one thing that was really valuable for me in the application process is taking time to sit and just like really force myself to write down like what I wanted to do with my life, even outside of like the realm of CBS specifically, but really trying to understand what my goals were and how an MBA fit into that. And then I think the second piece was understanding how a Columbia MBA specifically fed into that. And I think as we've touched on today, there are just, if you're interested in retail and luxury, there are just so many incredible opportunities at CBS through RLG, through LEF, through the classes, through the in-semester internships. And I think just taking the time to learn about those and really understand, you know, how you can kind of be a part of that and how that can help you in your journey, and really kind of focusing on not just like I want an MBA so I can learn accounting, but like specifically like what's going on here, because there's a lot of cool stuff.
Great. Well, it looks like we are just about at time. Thank you so much for answering all of these questions and sharing your advice with our prospective students today. We do have the RLG Club contact info listed on the side here on this screen. So if you do have any other questions, please feel free to send an email to the address listed here. Thank you so much again to Annie and Malika, and thank you again to everyone tuning in today. We look forward to staying in touch with you.